I am so happy to see Prashanth Rao in the house today. Oh, sorry, it's not Prashanth Rao, it's Prashanth Aroor.
Rao Aroor.
Rao Aroor, it's all the same. So, Prashant, tell us more about yourself because you have done some amazing work in the field of hospitality, in the field of hotels, in leisure travel tours. I think you've done a significant amount of work. You used to run a couple of hotels. Tell us more about what you've done in the past.
Thanks, Willie. It's so nice to be here with you today. Yes, I think for the best part of the last decade, I founded and then built a chain of about 35 hotels, the business class hotels, 3,000, 4,000 rupees a night, predictable. What do you like most when you stay in a hotel? What are the 4, 5 things that matter to you the most?
Wi-Fi. There has to be like hot water running, and it has to be nice and clean. And the room should smell fresh. That is something.
And I'm sure you like the food as well.
I love the
So
food.
those were our focus. With this chain, we built those 5 promises. We said good Wi-Fi and free Wi-Fi. We said great shower experience. Rain showers were mandatory for us. We built a fabulous bed option. We had a great set of mattresses, linen, pillows, soft and hard, which you don't normally get in that category. So now you have to go to a really nice hotel to get those options. And we focused a lot on food. We didn't start with food, and we thought the rooms business could be insulated from the food, and we could, have third parties operating food. But that was not the case. In India, I think people are most finicky about good food, and so we bit that bullet and we built a great culinary program. By the time we finished 4, 5 years, we started building our food program, and this chain grew to about 35 odd hotels in I think about 20 cities across 12 states. We ran it out of Bombay, and I exited in 2020. Um, and then,
But that's amazing insight, right? Because I think you really understood what the business class customer is. I think a lot of hoteliers probably think, oh, it's just a bed and breakfast. But I think the breakfast is super important because especially when people are working this hard and traveling, you want to get your food right.
correct.
And in many cases, then you're pressed on time, and the food they probably don't even eat well in the afternoon and in the evening. So that's a big part of experience. No?
Service is a tough business because very rarely does one size fit all. You need to have a bell curve. Like when you design a car, it's designed for somebody who's 5'4" to maybe 6'2". If you're taller than that or shorter than that, you're going to have a problem because you're not the classical customer. So similarly with hotels, we find that people have different tastes, different things are important to them. So the ability to adapt and customize and personalize, it becomes very critical.
So then, what was that magic formula, that technology, that design that you said? You really built this whole hotel chain around these 5 key experiences?
So we would be called either, earlier on we were an economy chain. Over time we became a mid-scale chain. And typically for this category, they follow a very cookie cutter approach. Most brands follow cookie cutter approach. But India is not one country. India is amalgamation. It's the Indian Union. It's 30 odd countries, and every 200 kilometers you travel, the preferences change, the taste changes. So you can't build one size for all. You need to be able to customize specifically to each micro market. And that was the big difference in the chain that we built. We sort of took a location to location call on how the hotel should look, what it should reflect, what we should serve, what to focus on as primary, satisfaction drivers. So it was very interesting. And
Context, no? Context. India is a land of context, right?
I think more than anything, those 10 years, 2009 to 2020, sorry. I think it was tremendous amount of. I was not a hospitality guy from the ground up. I never studied hospitality.
Oh, you didn't? What did you study?
So I'm actually an electronics engineer, and I was doing an MBA in SPJIMR in Mumbai. And this business plan, back then there was only, I think Ginger had started. They had maybe 3, 4 hotels.
Oh, I remember
And
Ginger.
Lemon Tree had just begun. There was an interesting story there. Again, they were building hotels. We wanted to convert existing hotels, which were under-optimized, to bring them into the mainstream. That was our, finding something that was underperforming and make it an outperformer. That was
Were there OYOs and all at that time when you
no,
started?
it came much later. I think in 2000, maybe 14 or so. So the first 3, 4 years, we were like the third player in the space, and we had a very deep management philosophy. We wanted to manage everything on site. It wasn't about light aggregation. It was about deep aggregation. So we hired the people, we trained the people, we ran the show. It wasn't an advisory. It was a hotel management 101. So a lot of those learnings, I think I've assimilated those into a new brand that we've built since the pandemic. We developed a 2 lakh square foot mixed use retail come hospitality asset. And the focus now is much more on the culinary program. So I think most hotels are aliens in their market. Now, people in the neighborhood, they see hotel as a place for outsiders. So I think we wanted to make it a hotel for locals as much as, the rooms are a sideshow for us. Our main focus is on the events and workshops and culinary programs.
That is amazing, right? Because you're so true when you say that. That is such key insight because hotels are for outsiders. Hotels are for outsiders. In fact, there is this column that you have to fill, right, in every hotel form saying, where are you coming from? And the minute you say, I'm coming from around, you're looked at with a little bit of suspicion.
Just think about the last 5 hotel experiences you had and tell me if you can recall the name of the restaurant.
I can't.
Because they don't exist with their own identity. They looked at as a restaurant within a hotel. So, we've built a separate identity for the restaurants. We even have a separate access to them. The minute you're a part of a hotel, there's a hesitation for people to walk in. They perceive it as going to be very expensive. They perceive it as going to take a long time to serve. Getting in and out is a headache. So how to bring the hotel restaurant to the high street? I think that was a big challenge, and we've sort of engaged. We primarily drive this new brand through Instagram. It's called the Avatar Hotel, and we drive it through Instagram, and we have as many followers for the hotel brand as we have for the restaurant brands.
Wow.
So they have their own identity, and
So there are 2 Instagram accounts, one for the
there are
hotel.
3. Each restaurant has an Instagram account. So,
Wow.
so we run a different philosophy on the marketing for each one of these. There's clear differences in the following. Our bakery, our artisan bakery called the Stayaway Cafe, has a 20 to 30-year-old following. Our restaurant called the Loft has a 30 to 40-year-old following, and the hotel has a slightly wider following.
This is clearly innovation and creativity in design, in experience design, in clearly you've spent a lot of time understanding. So that would be a good question for me to know. Did you foresee this, and is this very strategic in the way you designed this, or is it something that you saw and then you were being very responsive to how people were, who was coming and why were they coming? And tell us a little bit more. What if there are people who own small hotels or are looking at starting hotels and they're watching this this podcast, and what would you like to tell them in terms of how do you make that piece of investment or that piece of occupation a piece of art and something that the community can be proud of?
I think a lot of this is very soft, and I won't call it an innovation because they're very, very small, minute changes. But when they put them all together, it makes a significant difference. I think the big change that the pandemic has brought this YOLO concept in everybody. You only live once. So everybody wants to have that full life. So for this new brand, the Avatar Hotel, we've tagged its whole marketing is around this one line that says, "Live the life you love. Live the
Wow.
life you love." So basically, it's the job of the hotel to unlock that life for you. So we need to create those experiences where you feel like you're spending your time in a healthy and constructive way, and that you're gratifying yourself.
That's amazing because now somebody from the local community need not spend extra dollars going to a new place.
That's
Correct.
the thing. So we have the third restaurant I didn't speak about because it's a non-template restaurant. It's called the Loft Studio.
What's a non-template restaurant?
It doesn't have an everyday menu. So we use it like a festival restaurant. So each month it does something different.
Wow.
One month we ran Mexican because there wasn't a good Mexican restaurant in that town. Another month we called Jamming Goat, which is a very famous restaurant and bar from Goa. So they shut normally 2 months in a year because it's on the beach in Goa and it's terrible to be there when the weather is bad. So instead of shutting this year, they moved it to this hotel. And so, they popped up for 2 months and they did as well as the other restaurant. And the town got to, try all these stuff that they wouldn't normally get in that city.
So
We
it's like
we
a
did a
pop-up
Lucknowi
restaurant,
festival.
right?
Yeah. So every month we pick something new and we do it there. And so what happens, the person in the city, the citizen can, travel without leaving.
Yeah.
And so that experience comes through. And culinary is not, food is not, nourishment alone. In India, food is entertainment. When you want to go out with your family,
Food
sitting
is
around the table,
entertainment.
food is entertainment. With India, absolutely food is entertainment. We don't eat, just to feed ourselves. We eat because that's quality time together. And so you need to, put out a product that allows you to do that.
I think that is key insight here, because every time my daughter or my friend or somebody calls me and they say, hey, we need to spend some quality time, the first thing I say is, hey, let's pick a restaurant
We
that
don't have,
allows that to
our
happen.
country doesn't have the necessary public spaces. Even when we do, it's not well maintained, it's not always safe. So, in the end, hotels become parks. So when you need to spend some time and you don't know where to catch up, you just pick a hotel nearby. The problem is that hotel feels so foreign, people feel hesitant to walk in. It's the job of the brand to make it feel like a local. So we keep, hammering through that we are a place to just come and sit without an agenda. You don't need to really even have a coffee. You can just sit in our lobby.
Something like what
We have a
Starbucks did to coffee shops, right? I mean,
we have a book club that meets once a month in the hotel. They don't always order. That we don't mind. We create a space for them. They come, they discuss a book, and it adds to the whole atmosphere. It's a place where thinkers are there. We have in the last 11 months we ran a project called the Stairway Project.
the
which
stay
based-
away
the Stairway
project.
Project.
The Stairway project.
Stairway, because there's a
Stairway, okay.
yeah, there's a stairway in the cafe,
Okay.
and there's a stage on the mid landing of that stairway. And over the last 11 months, 150 kids between 15 to 20 years have sung there, and they've been paid for it.
Wow.
And all credit to Mangalore, where this hotel is, because they produce so much talent. There's a choir singing culture in town. So these kids come out and they have their first gig on a.
They have a choir singing culture in Mangalore.
Mangalore's got a very, very healthy choir singing culture. It's a big population of Roman Catholics and church-going population, and they're very creatively inclined.
So this would be like a key insight for a hotel owner, right? Across India, for example, look at what your community is consisting of. Look at, what are the underserved needs of that community. And do you think a lot of these hotel owners may start thinking, hey, I don't want all these free, people to just come and spend time. Does it really translate into business? Do you have any numbers to share, or do you have any personal experiences to say that while this is service to community, it is not just free service,
So by the time I was, at the end of my stint in the last company, I told you we were building a culinary program, and we were understanding it. We were realizing what works. I'll give you a simple example about what you just said. We had a hotel in Jodhpur with a lovely lawn. It had a lawn that could hold 250, 300 people. And we hardly got any bookings because we were brand new and people had set ways. They knew the caterers, they knew the restaurants they wanted. So for a new catering and event space to open, it takes some time to build a pipeline. So in order to speed it up, what we did is we used to get these costumes, like a Pokemon costume,
Yeah.
and stand outside schools. And we used to hand out a pass, for 200 rupees for a fun afternoon in the hotel on the lawn. So we put some jumping castles, we'll get some magicians in, we'll put a few stalls, it'll be Mehndi artists. And for 200 bucks, they would have 3-4 hours of entertainment. Like I said, cities don't have public spaces, so the hotels can turn out to be those public spaces. Thereafter, during that event, our general manager would meet everybody one-on-one. He would give out his visiting cards. The next time one of those families needed to do an event, who would they call?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think you can't look at it as freebies. You got to look at it as building relationships with the community. And I think the biggest difference a hotel can do is to start building relationship with its neighborhood. And the way to do that is with events and food. So you have food festivals, you have events, you have workshops. Teach them how to make, a particular cuisine. Have a cocktail mixing class. Have the chef teach them how to, put out a croissant. So this sort of builds that one-on-one relationship between the guests. Next time they need some service, you're the guy they're going to call.
I mean, this is mind bending, right? Because it's really easy to do. It's not difficult because all the skills is there, the knowledge is there, the required infrastructure is there. And I'm sure the hotel has certain times in the days where it's absolutely idle and you still have to run the AC or you still have to have all your fixed costs in place. It's just a matter of getting getting people to start thinking through that,
You need to break the mold. In the end, most hotel people come through a program that's 150 years old. It hasn't evolved that much in all that time.
What is this 150-year-old?
I mean, the hotel industry hasn't changed very much in that much time.
Isn't this the oldest industry in the
I
world?
think from the day a person started leaving his house, innkeeper somewhere opened a couple of rooms to travelers. So it is a very old industry, and it doesn't evolve very fast. There's a set mindset about doing things. In the last 10 years, however, several chains have launched very interesting brands which have We don't know how much it gets to the ground level, whether the customer perceives it, but at least in the literature, in the brand architecture, these are fundamental components of community building, youngsters, millennial driven, and things like that. I think one of the key aspects is, so there were three problems that we saw before the pandemic that we set out to solve with this new brand, the Avatar Hotel. One was the relationship between staff and guests. It's very tiresome as a hotelier to see sometimes guests behaving quite rudely with the staff. You have to understand that these are professionals on their own. They are following a career. They are not there to serve you blatantly. You have to still be nice to them, and there has to be some mutual respect
Yes.
between the staff and the guest. And so we have that culture in this hotel. Our staff are taught to speak their mind. They are taught not to hesitate. We've told them that there is not, you can't make a mistake by speaking. So please speak freely, whatever language works for you. Go ahead and do that. We don't overtrain the talking. So talk naturally, like you would meet somebody on the street. That's how you talk to your guests. Be respectful, but we don't like if guests are being irrational. And the general manager has a right to point it out and request them to be polite.
But I really like this because this whole idea that customer is king and the king can do whatever they want to do. I mean, and somebody who's doing a job is just there to do a job and is just to serve. And the fact that if you're in a hotel, you're in a service industry, and if you're in a service industry, everything goes. I think that is not appropriate. I love the culture you're trying to build, and I think there's so much authenticity to it. People can be who they are, and I think nobody gets up in the morning saying I want to be rude, or nobody gets up in the morning saying, I want to be bad. I think this is beautiful what you're saying.
The same difficult customer will travel abroad and be very nice to everybody. But in
Absolutely.
India, he would treat staff in the way that they've traditionally been treated, and that's not acceptable. We need to change that mindset. One of the problem with employees, though, is that in most countries they have, they're able to go and get service themselves. They'll finish a shift, walk to the Starbucks across the road, and they'll buy a coffee, and somebody will serve them. A lot of the people who take their first job in hotels in India haven't been served. They buy their tea at the stall next door, or they buy a vada pav, and the service is not always up to the mark. So they have bad examples.
So the role modeling, the model of service for them.
So one of the key parts of our training is to give them an experience. We put them up in another hotel, or we send them somewhere where they get service, so they understand why it's important. Because when you get good service, you understand, you have empathy for good service, and then when you have to give out service, you will do the same thing to your customers as well.
This is amazing because I'll tell you, there was this book I was reading, and a teacher in Africa, she was trying to teach children to write in primary school, and she went through this whole English program with the children, and the children just couldn't write any essays. She would tell them, write stories, write essays. They just couldn't write at all. And they spent a lot of time trying to build the writing skills in children. They were teaching them new words, vocabulary, and they were showing sentence structure and grammar and typical things like that. And it just didn't work. And then they asked somebody in the neighborhood saying, "Hey, we have this problem. Our kids are just not writing. They're just not writing for what's going on." All that person said is, take these kids out for the next 6 days to different parts of our community. Take them to a hospital, take them to a park, take them to a jungle, take them to a forest. Let them have that fun. And the week after that, everyone started writing. So experience, I think, is so crucial.
You need to
First-hand
open the mind
experience.
to experiences, and that's when you start thinking and analyzing things. I think it's a great story. It's a great example of how this happens.
And I'm seeing hotels and hotel owners having a larger impact here in the social conditioning of the way that community is going to grow, that community is going to develop.
Hotels are economic powerhouses. The tourism industry, for example, all included with travels and etc., accounts for some 10% of our GDP in India. It also accounts for 10% of the employment. So if you want to change the fortune of a particular area, building the tourism is the best bang for the buck. I remember a good story here that Mr. Arun Nanda told me from Mahindra. We used to interact once in a while. I had the good fortune of spending time with him. And he would always have these snippets which are very useful. And one of them was that they put up a plant in Pune for automobiles and spent crores of rupees and generated 500 jobs. And they put out a little Mahindra resort, worth about 500 crores, or even less than that perhaps. And they created 1,000 jobs. So, as a bang for the buck, the ability to uplift the entire community, tourism is the way to go. It's not just hotels, but destination management, travels, local experiences, kayaking, paddle boarding, surfing, hiking. These are the things that we need to curate. So if there are no good operators, we need to seed operators. We need to build around us so that we create some, some gravitational force for that entire destination.
Which
So
means that what you are also doing as a hotel owner, as a curator of experiences, is you are also building pride in the local community.
yeah,
They'll also start feeling like, wow, I love where I come from.
yeah.
And when people start feeling that way about themselves, they start making wiser choices.
Choices.
And as a country, we start becoming, much better individuals, right? And a hotel owner then has to understand this vital role he has in crafting the society that we want, right? It's not just a hotel, it's not a chai kada, right?
It's a group effort to build a destination. If you look at Kerala, for example, some 12, 15 years ago, they built God's own country. And nobody just got up one day and created it. It was a community effort. And there were hoteliers like Jose Dominic, there were officers like Amitabh Kansai, who then ran Niti Ayog after that. They got together, they built a destination. Suddenly there were so many Scandinavians coming. And they built into what was good in Kerala. They built into the health, the wellness,
They didn't want
etc.
to change anything, right?
They just
want to
they just curated it.
amplify.
They highlighted it. They created a culture. Whereas today, when you go and get service in Kerala, there's a very practiced professional approach from the driver who comes to pick you up at the airport, right up to every part of your experience. There's such a practiced calmness about it. So they've built that whole skill set. They've built that whole. It's very very practiced. It's very polished.
So the,
So
the way I'm thinking about this is not difficult because it's just about acknowledging what is there. It's about acknowledging what is evolving. It's about acknowledging that local beauty.
you build on your strengths.
And then saying that, hey, this is good enough, right?
So for the longest time, Kerala always had that wellness and health sort
Yeah,
of
the
positioning.
Ayurveda
Goa always had the devil's playground sort of positioning. And Western Karnataka, which is a very long coast, 400 kilometers, between Bekal in Kerala and Kankona in Goa, there is not one five-star property. But there are any number of boutique, hotels, there are small resorts, there are a lot of homestays all through the Western Ghats. And this is an area where within 50 kilometers you can go from ocean to the tallest peaks.
You're saying Western Karnataka as a region doesn't have this any sort of positioning
not
yet?
not one five-star resort, no tourism positioning specifically. But since we've started the Avatar Hotel in Mangalore, we've started working with governments to bring familiarization trips for travel agents to come down. We've shown them what can be done. We've shown them a lot of water activity. We've shown them a lot of hiking activity, coffee experiences. So it's called Coffee and Coast. So it's a great
Coffee
way
and
to, yeah, so you go to the coffee estates, you see the making process, you see the roasting process. Any number of estates have small boutique roasteries inside. Great weather, and you come down to the coast there must be a thousand rivers between Mangalore and Goa. It's dotted with beautiful estuaries, with spits of land, with oceans on one side and rivers on one
Sounds
side.
like
It's a you're a
heaven.
bike rider, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it's a bike rider's paradise. I mean, a cyclist paradise.
Wow.
You can spend a week cycling up and down. There's places like Gokarna, the wonderful Shiva statues in Murudeshwar. So
Tell us something about. I mean, you seem to be a phenomenally, well-traveled person. You seem to be somebody who understands India as well. So, is there any other places in India that you feel are under-marketed in this sense, like the Western Karnataka belt? Is there any other any places? What if we have people who are watching this podcast from there? What would you want to say? Let's say Gujarat or maybe any other place. Anything that comes to your mind that you see as an opportunity, and you're giving this real secret tip.
No, this what typically happens is every destination gets marked for certain destinations, and we end up ignoring the others. So you need to take the time out to travel the roads less traveled. Like for example, Rajasthan has Javaiban, which is in the far west of Rajasthan. It's a place where leopards bask in the sun. They're lying on the boulders, spread eagled, catching sun. You just need to walk around and spot them. They're all over the place, and people spend hours and hours driving through dense jungle looking for leopards. The leopards will find you here. I mean, you just need to take the time out to see what's there and do some research. And I think thanks to this pandemic, whatever had to be discovered got discovered. People packed their bags. I mean, for the first 4 5 months of the Avatar Hotel's opening, people came without a checkout date. And I've never seen that in hospitality because people flew, they always knew when they're leaving. Now, for the first time, people were driving cars coming from Gujarat, 1,500, 2,000 kilometers away, without a itinerary, just driving through the country. And they would come in, park, and if they liked the hotel, they'd spend a couple of days more. Our reservation people had a hell of a time trying to roster rooms because they had no idea when these guys were checking out. They wouldn't commit. But it was nice because, we got to meet so many people, entire families, unlike, business class customers who leave at 9 in the morning and turn up at 9 at night. These guys would spend the whole day. They would sip coffee. They would not dine together. There was a certain vibe in the hotel, thanks to a lot of families. We like this family kind of business.
Beautiful.
It's easier to please them. It's you can create for them.
And
It tickles your your
yeah,
inclinations
it's
as a
like
hotelier.
welcoming somebody home,
Exactly
right?
that.
And it's always an experience that endows both people.
Exactly that.
It's a
Yeah.
potpourri of culture, and that's when you really start seeing it. People are so warm.
People are very
People are
warm.
so friendly.
Given a chance, people will always be nice.
Now, with all this experience, with with all the work that you've done with Mango Hotels, all the work that you've done around the hospitality industry, you have almost 28,000 people or so following you on LinkedIn. You're so much of an authority on the subject, and you can really help so many hotel owners. What are these one or two key problems that you feel? Because I feel it's only a hotel owner who's ran a hotel for X amount of years. The best thing for him to do is to start more hotels, right? So what do you think is stopping him from that? What do you think is, how can you make, let's say, hospitality more inclusive, a wider amount of people? Me, for example, I would always tell myself, oh, I'm not from Udupi, I'm not a Shetty, I can't do a hotel, because my father or my mother said, oh, no, if you're from Kerala, you're either a teacher or a farmer. If you're from, Udupi, then you can run a hotel. Things like that. That's the kind of conditioning that we've had, at least I've had. So, I know you're doing this new thing, part of Alt, and it's crazy good. So I just need to know, what is it? Tell us, just open your heart and tell us everything about how it's going to benefit hotel owners, or how it's going to benefit people like me who love hotels.
I think it's just, I wouldn't consider what we did very significant. We created a space for ourselves. We created a valuable chain, I thought, and we had a good run. Um, I think the important part is to have a learning culture. I come from a family business that's 90 years old, and for 75 of those years, we ran a bus transport company. We had a fleet of about 600, 700 buses. So there wasn't much going on. We had backed out from that industry. The industry got nationalized, more or less. And most of the buses today are operated by the government. And so we were sitting on some real estate, and there wasn't much going on in my hometown. So I took the time to go out and get an MBA in Bombay. And although I was an engineer, I had perhaps, now that I think about it, maybe an underlying, not a flair, but a need for hospitality. It's a calling, right? Hospitality is a calling. You can't just get up and say, I'm going to start a hotel. You need to have a
Okay.
calling. And so we taught ourselves. We made several mistakes. When we started, we said hoteliers don't know what they're doing, and they're all wrong. But over time, we realized that some of the things they do for very good reason. So we got re-educated. So maybe I would say we did 30, 40% things differently, but 60% they turned out to be right, and they do it for good reason. So I think as long as you have that, even with the Avatar, which is the family business is now converted to hospitality, it's our ambition to build a destination in Western Karnataka. We don't have a ambition to grow the chain very much. We're not doing it. Big is not beautiful for us anymore. For us, going deep is more important than going wide. And so we've got 4, 5 locations identified in the Western Ghats and along the ocean, which we will develop as fully sustainable resorts going forward. This would be all inclusive. You leave your wallet at home. Once you book, you just leave your wallet at home. Come in and, it'll be the hot menus. We'll grow the stuff on the property. Our chefs will just go gathering and picking in the morning, see what produce is there. They'll put it out on a buffet for you. There won't be a menu card. And these properties will be completely off-grid. They will consume all their waste. They will generate all the energy. They'll grow all their food. They'll conserve soil. They'll conserve water. So this will be hospitality in the sustainability in the Vedic sense, not in the the modern the lead sort of sustainability. And so we might do a hotel in another town like a Bangalore or a Goa, which is an immediate neighbor. But I don't see us going India wide. I think our ambition now is to build a template for sustainable tourism, and so that we don't spoil the community that we are trying to promote. A lot of times you find a new destination, a couple of guys talk about this new property, this beautiful, And then you have 30 Me Too properties popping up, and suddenly the very destination that it was created to promote is destroyed by the property that was created to promote it, which is
Yeah.
very,
Like
very
construction is
tragic.
not development.
Very tragic.
Yeah.
I think irresponsible development is the greatest danger. I mean, Uti used to be charming when I was small. It used to be a very charming town. I don't think Uti is, doesn't
As
have that
as
anymore.
charming as
I'm
before.
worried for Kurg. Kurg was another undiscovered gem. And now when I drive through large sections of it, it's developed all along the roads. There's no more greenery. The estates are disappearing rapidly from the roadside. They're all turning out to be boutiques, shops, and eateries. And I don't know how you can solve that except to have some sort of zoning so that you preserve some of the areas, at least as as natural,
Yeah.
natural environments. And you must have strict laws on how you develop. You can't treat hospitality like real estate. You have to treat it like hospitality. It has to be community driven. It can't just be about development and pouring concrete. And Kurg has paid the price with huge landslides, for example. So we have to take care of the other destinations. We have to take care of the Chikmangalores and the smaller hill stations that are so far pristine. We got to take effort to take care of them.
So you're now doing this amazing work with Alt, right? That's what I gather. So what exactly is that, and how you're going to be helping hotel owners? Because I'm guessing hotel has like so much capital investment, and so tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing with Alt, and what is it that you're bringing in for this vast, wide majority of people to start participating in.
Alt is revolutionary. For any other plan, I would not have changed my profile and lifestyle. I was content to be where I was. It took 3 or 4 calls with Anand to convince me that this had to be done. Simply put, the greatest draw is it democratizes hotel ownership. So a hotel is always seen as an asset for ultra high net individuals or large corporations. Why? Because they are capital intensive. They have a long payback, and India doesn't have the greatest borrowing for hospitality. It's not treated as infrastructure everywhere. Some states have post-pandemic offered infrastructure status to hotels. Whether they're disbursing loans accordingly, I'm not yet sure. I haven't seen examples. But a lot of states don't even recognize hospitality as infrastructure. It must be because it's the greatest employment driver. Simply put, it takes a lot of money, but it generates a lot of revenue. It employs a lot of people. It can pull people out of poverty. Simply put, it can pull people out of poverty. So they have to be promoted. They have to be taken care of like gems. Hotels are Navaratnas for a country with India's diversity. Hotels are Navaratnas. What all does is suppose you developed a hotel. Let's take the example of the hotel that I've developed. Let's say it's putting out 10 crores a year, and on a simple envelope valuation, it's worth 100 crores. Now, if I want to exit and I want to use the capital to develop something else, I can still manage the hotel, but I can sell the asset and use it to develop another asset. It's not going to be easy to find that guy who's going to cut a 100 crore check. There must be 5 guys in South India who can do that. I mean,
You
in
have the
terms
money
of
and the interest.
interest and ability wise, there must be 5 guys who can cut that check. So, in the end, you're going to have to sell at a discount because there won't be that many options to bid against each other. What Alt does is Alt can profile a particular asset. You can say, this is the hotel, this is how many years it's been running, this is what it's been earning all these years. Predictably, it will do this much over the next 10 years. This is what we hope to earn, this asset will earn over these next 10 years. And can then build a book and put out a note and draw interest from, say, 200 odd accredited investors and raise an SPV with them and go out and buy the asset, remain as an asset manager. So none of these guys who own it, co-own it, they don't have to really get involved with day-to-day, who's the brand, what are they doing, are they optimal. Alt will do all that. Alt will remain as asset manager. And where a brand is necessary, we'll use a brand. Where a brand is, it's very small, very boutique, and a brand, you may not get a right brand, we'll develop the capability in-house, a super opco of sorts, which can operate assets across a range of verticals. And this is where we were until, every time I speak to Anand or Avinash, it's like learning some. I had a conversation with the marketing agency with them the other day, and half the things he spoke, I was hearing for the first time. So even though I've been here for 7-8 months, I still continue to learn and grasp. But what we are seeing now is that while we are doing hotels and resorts, and while we've built a pipeline and we're talking to several, we're figuring out the valuations, we're figuring out how to have those predictable income streams. Um, we find that the biggest pain point for developers is that India has some 600,000 unsold apartment units. And we sell about 230, 240,000 a year. So depending on the city, we are sitting on 3 years stock of apartments. Why are they empty? Either it's a poor match, there's a market for 4 BHKs, somebody built 1 BHKs. So the 4 BHKs sold, but the 1 BHKs remain. Things like that, market mismatch, poor marketing, no ability to sell. So, and on the other hand, India has this huge urbanization, migration to cities, and kids and young professionals, even retired people, have a hell of a time finding well planned, well managed
Yeah.
accommodation, regular housing.
Yeah. Like in Bangalore, it takes like, I don't know, like
Correct.
2 months to find a place to stay.
Correct. In New York, you would go up to a building, and you just have an apartment that's furnished and ready and waiting. You just sign a contract and you move in. That doesn't happen here. It's very non-transparent. And so what we've said is, suppose you can't sell these apartments to end users, so it's wrong for the market. But there's somebody else who'd be happy to stay there but can't afford to buy it.
Correct.
Here's a chance to package these apartments as, say, ready to rent apartments, or it could be student housing if it's a university market. It could be executive housing if there are a lot of companies that have a lot of joinees who come in. They need those first 6-8 months to stay somewhere nearby before they figure out where the kids will go to school. It could be retirement living. So we find a appropriate end use for these apartments, and they may not be the entire building, so you can't do a serviced apartment. It has to be a residential product. Managed apartments. Either the entire building we manage, at least our share of the apartments we'll manage. We'll fit them out. We'll offer them on-call services. They can subscribe to maids. They can subscribe to housekeeping, to engineering, to plumbing, whatever they need. They can call for. There'll be a virtual desk to serve them. The process of moving in and signing up would be online and simple. So we would find these end users, and once we've done that and created an income for these apartments, suddenly it's a saleable product to an investor.
Absolutely.
He doesn't want to stay there.
Absolutely.
He wants to own real estate rather than get 1 or 2% return on an empty apartment where he has to keep searching for tenants all the time and hassled by brokers and everything else. Here's a chance to, own and if somebody checks out, we'll move somebody else in. So we create a steady income for him, insulate him from the ups and downs of the occupancy, and he gets probably 2 times of what he would get for a regular
amazing.
apartment. So suddenly
really
you
solving
have
a problem there.
Yeah, so developer's happy. He got rid of entire inventory. We created liquidity for him. And here is somebody who had 20 lakhs to invest in real estate, but nothing quality to buy. And suddenly they can buy. They don't have to buy the whole apartment. They can buy a portion of the stock of 100 apartments.
Yeah.
So they don't need to own a particular apartment. They get it's a group ownership.
So that lumpy nature of real estate is now like kind of
So I
broken
think
it
a
down.
lot of our hospitality going forward with Alt will be non-hotels. I think there will be what I call specialized living. So
Specialized
living that's curated for a particular purpose. It could be either a co-living product where you share rooms and you have a great amount of social activity. It could be executive housing, which requires a high amount of premium services. It could be retirement home, more healthcare, more wellness.
I was talking to an author. She writes books in Mumbai, and she said, "I got this new book deal, and she lives in this amazing apartment, some 45th floor, sea-facing house. I mean, there could be nothing better.
The life.
Yeah, that's the life." And so I asked her, "What are your plans?" And she's like, "I got this book order. I have to write a book in the next 2 weeks, so I'm leaving Mumbai." I'm like, "What? What do you mean you're leaving Mumbai?" And she went to Kerala, and she found some place in Kerala to stay by herself for 2 weeks so that she can finish writing a book. And this is the second time that this happened to me in the past 1 month. I met another person who sold her education business, and she wanted to think. She wanted to think of what she wanted to do next. So she went somewhere to the back and beyond of Kashmir to stay for a month.
You shouldn't be
Special-
surprised. You told the story about the teacher in Africa, so you should be completely not surprised about this.
Absolutely. But, the fact that, specialized living for me now is going to be, especially with millennials, people who want to start things on their own, people who are creative as we are moving into a creatorship economy where people want to go deeper, as you said. They want to go deep within themselves and then to come out and produce things. I think this is going to be phenomenal. I think you might even end up starting a whole new category there.
Everybody is hustling, right? Like I play a round of golf in Bangalore. My caddy is hustling me. He's selling me a range experience. He's selling me a club. Everybody's hustling. So it's important to get transparency. So when you publish things, these are the rates. This is the way it works. This is the minimum monthly or the period of occupation. The minute it's all out there. For example, Alt has a small division called online plots. All we've done is we've mapped the plots. We put the price out straight away. There's no haggling, and it's there. Everybody's paying one price. You can browse the plots, you can pick the plots, you can check the orientation, you can check your north, south, east, west, your vastu, and then you get a drone shot view of that plot, confirm that it's there, and then you just pay a little booking amount and it's done. It's blocked in your name. Next time in the next 2-3 months, go and close the transaction.
It's amazing.
It's
right?
like booking a movie ticket. So that's all we need to do to real estate. We need to make it clean. Real estate for the longest time has been dirty, transparent,
Super
full of
opaque.
intermediaries, very opaque. And so all we are doing with Alt is trying to bring real estate to the masses. And just because it's a low budget or ticket size for investment, you shouldn't have to buy crappy products. That should not be the case. You could own you can't own the Leela. It's owned by somebody. But hypothetically speaking, as an example, I like to say you could own 1 square foot of the Leela.
Amazing.
And that's nice because it's on a token on your phone. And every time you drive past, you have that pride of ownership. Plus, you have the income that comes from it.
And I think real estate has that big aspect of pride of ownership, right?
It does, because
somebody said location.
Simply put, there isn't one investment product out there that's intergenerational. That can keep adjusting.
Intergenerational.
You can leave this for your children. And it will keep on appreciating. It's a perfect record. You don't lose the record of it. And all said and done, hotels and residential products, which are like hospitality, specialized living, like I called it, they adjust for inflation very quickly. So suppose the cost of living goes up, in the very next cycle you can change the price. In a hotel, you can change the price every day. In a ready apartment, you can change the price every month. But the minute you give out a commercial office for 9 years, you're locked into a price. It doesn't adjust for inflation. So if inflation is very high, you actually end up losing your income over time. Hotels are not like that. They don't enter into long. So while they don't have terribly fixed income, there will be some up and down, but they adjust for inflation all the time.
Very flexible in that sense, right? I mean, if you can adjust your pricing, what best?
So hotel ownership has always been a family business. Hotels are not meant to be owned by corporations. Hotels should be run by corporations. The ownership is always, a portfolio of HNIs who are trying. There are Infosys founders who own hotels today. Why would they do that? Why are these tech guys buying hospitality? It's a very good dividend product. It keeps on putting out money year after year after year. It has its ups and downs, but over 20, 30 years, it's only going to grow.
So what do you think, if there's a hotel owner who comes in, I was just thinking, like, how do you help more hotel owners do more of what they're good at, and somebody like me who wants to, own that 1 square feet in, let's say, hypothetically speaking, a Leela kind of hotel. How do I go about doing that? How, you're talking about transparency and how transparency is a premium, in a place where everybody wants to be opaque. So in a certain context, you're removing inefficiencies, so you're taking inefficiencies out of the market, and you're trying to make it more approachable, more inclusive, especially for younger people, like the youth of the country. Because if we don't take care of the youth of the country or give them opportunity, the right opportunity, correct investments, then they may not be able to contribute in the GDP, and maybe they may not be able to even become financially independent. And now everybody wants to be financially independent, retire early. Yeah. They all want to follow their passion. They all have a genius project running at the back of their mind. They all are stuck in job. I mean, earlier there used to be this ad saying stuck in the wrong job. Yeah. I don't think a lot of millennials are stuck in the wrong job because they just don't take on jobs which they feel that is not giving them purpose and clarity.
No, absolutely. To answer both your questions, simply put, a developer of a hotel, if his propensity is to operate them, if that what gives him satisfaction, and he wants to have a second and a third, it's going to take very long time to accumulate the kind of capital for that. You need at least half the money. The bank will give you half. So you can partially exit a hotel. You can sell half of it. You continue to operate it if you do a good job. We'll be an asset manager. You'll be the brand. and you use the capital that you get from half the hotel to go put up your second property, and the bank will lend you the other half.
Amazing.
So that's simply what we can do for a developer. It happens at a fair price based on what is generating in income. It's simply put, we are not emotional about this. It's math. If a hotel puts out a certain amount of money, that's how it gets valued. And if the valuation works, we go ahead and do that transaction.
And every time that hotel makes money, every time that hotel does a great job or throws out this amazing event or has this whole community, buzzing around the hotel, I'm making a little bit of money. With
Even where valuations don't match, we have a bridge for that. We can value the entire current cash flow to the percentage that the new investors own. So the hotel owner, the current owner, will take a haircut on his cash flow until the hotel gets to a position where he can then liquidate the other half at the new. So we can create this, if you have the intent to sell, we can make it happen. We can bridge the gaps. In terms of the end owner, at the moment we're doing large fractions. I'm not the expert on the fractionalizing side, but from what I understand, these are accredited investors, so it has to be fractions of 25 lakhs at the very least. But there won't be one fraction of 25 lakhs. In effect, it will be multiple tokens bundled together. So at some point, we're going to let you sell that 25 lakhs at 5,000 a pop. You can sell shares of 5,000. That will require some more work to be done, which we're in the process of doing. And so we'll end up having a digital real estate exchange where you can bring these tokens and you can, you need some cash to go out on Saturday evening, sell 1 square foot and go out party.
I'm just happy somebody's solving this problem.
It's going to be very liquid. It's going to take some time, but it's going to be very liquid.
What a great conversation I had with you, Prashant. This is just the kind of conversations that so many people need to hear. And a lot of behavior is going to change. A lot of new opportunities are going to happen. Thank you, Prashant, for being
lovely. Way to wake me up in the morning, Willie. Way to wake me up.
Thank you.
I learned so much talking to you. Just hearing thoughts loudly. Yeah.
Thanks, Prashant. See you.
My pleasure.